Multi-tools have become extremely popular in recent years. Now, in the case of most multi-tools, they're built around a platform that provides you with a pair of pliers, as well as having other tools built into it as well. These kinds of multi-tools are, generally speaking, best suited to an urban environment, although frequently they are used in camping and bushcraft. They're not specifically made for that context. Now, I will say that generally speaking, a multi-tool is not going to be as good as purpose-made tools. But when you don't have a toolbox with you, having a multi-tool does give you effectively a halfway decent toolkit that will allow you to do a variety of different jobs. But again, returning to the bushcraft context, is there anything out there that's really suitable and really ideally purpose-made for a bushcraft context? Well, yes, there is. And I've just acquired one, and we're going to have a look at it. Stay tuned. So when it comes to something specifically made for bushcraft use, the usual platform built around a pair of pliers that can fold up isn't necessarily the most useful thing in the world. As I say, the normal multi-tool is really more for an urban environment. It does well on a building site, for example, or if some small little job comes up and you don't have your main toolkit with you, although the tools in a multi-tool won't necessarily be the same quality as purpose-made tools, they're not bad and they do provide a good option. But in a bushcraft context, a pair of pliers has very limited use. For example, now some multi-tools have a knife, they'll have a saw blade, and that's particularly more suited. But really, in a proper bushcraft context, there are certain tools you're going to need. Now, this does mean that a multi-tool made especially for a bushcraft context might be a little bit larger than what you're normally going to see. I have something here. It's the made by Nextool, which is a Chinese company. I bought a number of their pieces from them. Are they the very finest quality? No, but they do actually make halfway decent multi-tools. This is based on, there is a design that's made in America. I don't know what it's called. I haven't been able to find it online. I know they do make them. And this is sort of a copy of that. I do know this is considerably less expensive than the American version, although I suspect the American version, from what I gather, is slightly higher in quality. So I wouldn't dismiss that one if you can find it. But if you're on a limited budget, this might be more suitable to you. The box is a bit big, and that's because this tool is not small. So we're going to have a bit of a, I've been into this box already, but we're going to do it as a bit of an unboxing so that you can see what's there and see how you would use it. I think you're going to find this interesting. So to begin with, we're going to open the box. And the tool is inside. There's also a little leaflet, and we'll just get this out of the way quickly. This is a simple instruction manual for this tool. I will say the one downside to it is entirely in Chinese, and if you don't speak, or more importantly, if you don't read in Chinese, you will find that difficult to use, except for the fact that it's entirely pictorial. So that's not so bad. The tool itself, take the box away, comes with a sheath. The first thing I'll point out is that on the side of it is a small ferro rod. Now, it's not the biggest or the best, but it does give this tool fire-making capabilities, and that's easily replaced. It's a fairly standard one. The sheath itself is a good stiff Kedora. It has a belt loop and this here so you can attach it to things. That's not bad. So it does allow you to transport it. And then this is the tool itself. Now it has a couple of interesting little features, and one of them is a little button right here. And we're going to start with that. If I press this button, there's a latch. The bottom opens, and out comes this small subtool. So let's have a look at this. Now, this ain't perfect, but it ain't terrible either. However, if on all of the reviews I've seen, this is the only thing that gathers any complaints. It could have been done slightly better. I like Nextool, I like what they make, and I like this, but this does have one particular fault, which we'll go into in a moment. It has two blades on it. The first one is a saw blade that locks open with a liner lock, and it's got the 90-degree spine, so you can use that with the ferro rod quite easily. Now I'm going to make one criticism of this. I do believe that these saw teeth could have been about 0.5 millimeter deeper and just a whisker sharper. I have given this a quick test. It does cut wood. It could cut wood better. I'm probably going to resharpen that a little bit because I know how to and I have the tools. But that's a minor criticism because it can be done better. But it does actually work. Again, this is on a liner lock, and so it's easy to close. And it's also a knife blade. And my one criticism of this is also has a liner lock, but not a standard one. Because, watch this. It moves. This will wiggle and jiggle. Now, this is moderately sharp, slightly hollow ground. I could sharpen it a bit more. You may think, is that broken? And actually, no, it's not. They do it this way on purpose because in some countries where there are very strict knife laws, the one I'm standing in right now, for example, blades that are under 3 inches long that do not lock in the open position are legal to carry as EDCs. This has a safety feature to prevent it from closing on your finger, and you actuate the liner lock to fully close it again. But because technically it's not locked in the fully open position, it gets around that particular piece of legislation. Now, the design of this blade is such you're always going to be pushing with it, so I'm not really too concerned. But I'm not happy about that. I would have preferred a standard liner lock or perhaps a slip joint. I mean, if they had a slip joint back there, then I wouldn't really mind this at all. But as is, I find it slightly annoying. Now, is it a deal breaker for me? No, not at all. It's just slightly annoying, but that's the worst of it. But it's a functional piece of kit, so that's fine. And it can't accidentally close on your fingers, which is, of course, a good safety feature. It just could have been executed just slightly better, I think. One thing about this, if you are using the saw, so we open that up, it has this little slide back here, as well as those holes. So you have that hole in that semicircle, and then this slider. Why? Well, on the tool itself, there's a little knurled thing here, which I can partially unscrew. And then this stands a little bit proud, you can see, and that'll fit into this hole here. And this will fit underneath the screwy in bit. And if I then tighten that down, this is now attached, so it gives me longer reach. Although the saw length hasn't increased, my handle has, and if I want to hold this with 2 hands while sawing, perhaps because I'm suffering some physical exhaustion, or if I'm trying to cut a branch, for example, off of a tree that's a little bit higher up, this gives me extra reach because I have all that extra reach there. So that's an interesting aspect. I wouldn't necessarily use that unless I was trying to reach something that was a little higher up. As I say, I can cut down a branch that's a little bit higher using that by taking advantage of the extra reach. Otherwise, I would probably just saw in the more usual way that I would with any knife with multi-blades, including a saw. And of course, when you're not using it or when you're done with it, you press the button, it slides in, that end goes in first, and then press, you'll hear a little click, and that's it. It's not going to just drop out now, and then once you close that, it's quite secure. So that's the basic knife and saw function of this tool. Now, in terms of using it as a digging tool, Again, this little knob here, when you get it, it's fully wound down. And of course, this shovel head, it has this little protector on it. We'll take that off for now. That, you wouldn't normally keep that, but that's just for transport. But this will not open. On the other hand, there's this little pad here, which is slightly raised. Now that's meant to be a hammer. I wouldn't be using that for hammering in nails, but I would use it to hammer in wooden tent pegs that you can carve and make using this tool. But in order to open the shovel up, you need to unscrew that, and now this will move. And in the first position, it becomes, you have a good, decent grip, and it becomes a hoe. If you're chopping into soil with that, you're going to get a lot of power. It'll actually chop up the soil really well and work extremely efficiently. Loosen this up again. You can, a bit more. You can then open it into the digging position. Tighten that back down again. If you don't tighten it down properly, it'll jiggle a bit, but if you do tighten it down properly, it's rock solid. Now, to call this a shovel is a bit of an exaggeration. This is really the size of a trowel. But it's a trowel with a very long handle that you can get a two-handed grip on, so you can actually power into the ground with that. If you are digging a little area for a campfire, or if you wanted to go a bit deeper and a bit finer and dig something like a Dakota fire pit, this will work extremely well. If you're digging a cat hole latrine, again, this will work absolutely fine. So for ordinary camp purposes, this will be fine. If you're planning on digging a tunnel complex with this, good luck to you. It's just not a big enough spade head. But for the purposes of ordinary camp life, this is fine. That's really all you're going to need. Loosen that up. A bit more. And then that comes right down. And I will mention there's a little nub sticking up right there. And if I press that nub in, and then screw that down again, we have a little axe head. Now, to call this a hatchet would be perhaps a little bit of an overstatement. This is quite small. This is more of a tomahawk head. But you have a good solid grip on this thing, and it is actually a halfway decent tomahawk head. It comes sharp. It should be fairly easy to keep that sharp. For campside purposes, a tomahawk is all you need. Quite often when I go camping and I'm doing bushcraft, rather than bringing a hatchet or a larger axe, I just bring my tomahawk, and that frankly works perfectly well. So this gives you some real proper chopping capability, digging capability, sawing capability, fire lighting capability. That knife blade, although it's a little bit weird the way that it works, I have to tell you, will be perfectly fine. Once make sure it has a nice good edge on it, and it will work absolutely beautifully for feather sticking or preparing a bit of birch bark as kindling. If you use it to make some snares, if you snare a rabbit or a squirrel or what have you, you could certainly field dress that animal for preparation for cooking with that knife. Let me say, it's not the very highest quality, but it's not bad. And then the whole unit, again, just slips into its sheath, and you are good to go. And of course, there's a lanyard on it, and of course, this gives you a bit of cordage with it as well. So in an emergency, this would actually be quite good and versatile. In terms of weight, it's about 770 grams. Let's actually have a look at it on this. So in grams, the whole thing weighs 768 grams, it's telling me. So to put that into context, and that's with the sheath as well. Without the sheath, 718 grams. So to put that into context, for those of you who don't speak metric, it's 1 pound, 11.1 ounces with the sheath. And without the sheath, whoops, switched off by mistake. Switch it back on again. Gotta watch that button. So without the sheath, it's 1 pound, 9.4 ounces. And part of that's actually the weight of the lanyard. So, I mean, it's not very heavy. It's halfway, more or less, between being a pound and a kilo. So that's relatively lightweight for this many tools that are usable. Now, what I will say to you is this. If you are minded to take this tool camping, it'll work. It'll serve its function. I mean, when I go into the field to do camping and bushcrafting, I'm probably going to still take my other digging and cutting tools that I would normally carry. However, if I were going to a wilderness area where there's the slightest possibility of something going wrong, and I'm going to bring a day pack with me, and I recognize the fact that if something does go wrong, a weather event, an injury, you get lost, you walked further than you planned on, and now you don't have enough time to get back to your vehicle. Having a day bag with some emergency kit in it is going to be a good idea. This doesn't weigh that much. Even when we put it in its little scabbard, it doesn't weigh very much. But it does provide you with a range of tools that in a bushcraft context is going to be a lot more useful than the standard multi-tools that are really designed for urban environments. So how much do they cost? Well, I got mine through AliExpress. Normally they run between 40 and 60. I took advantage of the Black Friday sale, and also there was another sale on. I had two sale prices going at once, so it cost me less than 40. So that's pretty good. I was very happy with that. And to be honest, whether you're using this in a day bag for a day hike in a wilderness area, or if you wanted something comparatively lightweight but still multifunctional in something like a bug out bag where weight and space are at a premium and you want a decent range of tools in case of emergency, I can highly recommend this. It's not particularly expensive, and it's got some durability. I know this, but at the same time, it's also got moving parts. So like I said, I wouldn't trust it as a complete replacement to all of my purpose-built tools, but as an emergency backup, whether for a day bag or in some cases, if you're just doing a bit of light camping and you just want a couple of tools, you don't want to take too much, you're not necessarily going to get heavily into the bushcrafting, this isn't a bad option. And again, as part of a bug out bag or a get home bag, I think this is a good deal. I don't really have any problem with this at all. I kind of like it. So it pays you money and you makes your choice. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found that interesting. And I hope if you have one of these or the original version that this is based upon and have any opinions about that, please share in the comments. Do consider subscribing if you haven't subscribed yet. And do share and like this video. It really helps with the algorithm apart from anything else if you're making a comment. So if you have something sensible to say that, or if you have a question or what have you, please feel free to contact me. There will be some links in the description to some of my other multi-tool reviews. So if you want to see some of those, have a look there. Anyway, I hope to see you in the next one. And in the meantime, have a good one.